I am Joel McLeod, and welcome to the 905er. The Ford government is intent on eliminating elected school board trustees in Ontario. It has already replaced 4 school boards with appointed supervisors. And in our previous episode, we spoke with Nokha Dakroub, a former Peel School Board trustee, about why she believes school boards need to have appointed members, similar to those of hospital or police boards. As we stated in that episode, we wanted to do this topic justice. Rather than do what other shows would do and have 2 people of opposing sides yell at each other over their opinions, we thought we'd give each side a proper episode. In the end, we'd let you, the audience, decide for yourselves. And to that end, we present to you part 2 of our series on school board trustee reform. We welcome back to the podcast Andrea Grebenc, former chair of the Halton District School Board. Andrea has been an outspoken critic of the Ford government's approach to trustee reform, citing the government's efforts as an erosion of democratic norms in our education system, which strips away elected trustees' abilities to advocate for student success, as well as finding economical and practical applications to Queen's Park education policies on the ground in our local schools. She joins me today to present her argument on why Doug Ford should keep his hands off our school boards.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andrea Grebenc, for coming back. I don't know what round this is for coming on the 905. You've been on a few times as when you were the chair of the Halton District School Board. You are no longer the chair, but you've been you're an MPP candidate in Burlington. You have the experience as a chair, and you are a proponent of kind of keeping school boards as an elected position accountable to taxpayers in Ontario. Andrea, very much thank you for coming back on to the 905er.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I was so happy to get the invite. Well,
this is kind of I'll be honest, as we're recording this, there's a number of stories happening in Ontario, and I kind of had to pick one. We tend to follow a lot of the education file on this, and we're all for reform, and we're all for okay, we got to keep up to date with the times, right? This isn't we aren't in the schoolhouse off in the country anymore. The education is a far more diverse, dynamic, and I think if we're going to compete in the 21st century, we need to be ahead of the curve in terms of ensuring that our kids have the best education system possible. I kind of want to hear from you, when the Premier and Paul Calandra, the Minister of Education, are talking about eliminating school board trustees. I know that you are very much against that idea. I want to hear why you think that's a bad approach.
Well, there's a few things. The first is I am truly against an administrative, centrally governed system that's supposed to take care of all Ontario, because what happens in Niagara is very different than what's happening in Sudbury, and it's across the province. We look at, as trustees, we take the information and the policies from the ministry, and we test them against the real life classroom experience locally, and we go, hey, this may work or this will not work. And something that might work in downtown Toronto may not work in Thunder Bay. Mm-hmm. So, or beyond in the rural areas. I think that it's, and let's be honest, if you're working centrally in Ontario, it's going to be from a perspective that will be downtown Toronto. Everything that this government tends to do is very Toronto based, as we've seen. And yes. I suspect that if they want to govern the school system centrally, it'll be from that perspective as well. I also think that we need local voice. We need a place for parents in the community and students to voice their opinions, to tell us what's going on. One of the mandates of the trustee is to take issues from the community and bring it to the board table. Mm-hmm. And we've already seen supervisors in the 5 boards that have been taken over be very unaccountable to the communities that they're supposed to be serving. We're seeing now in Toronto, they're not even going to be streaming committee meetings, right. Which the minister has now said that that is that's happening because it's because of political commentary that's happening at the board table. And so do we get rid of Queen's question period at Queen's Park because that's what they do?
Okay, well, but to give the minister the benefit of the doubt on mm-hmm. this one, this is coming off. I mean, we had a case of the infamous story in the Brant Halton Catholic District School Board, where their yes. trustees took tax dollars to fly to Italy to go on a $190,000 shopping trip for art, quote unquote.
Yes. I am completely against that. Okay. That was wrong, and there should be consequences for that.
But I mean, I know of trustees, not in the Halton Public, but I know in Halton Catholic there were trustees that wanted to go on trips to Europe to tour Auschwitz for mm-hmm. whatever reason I don't know. You know that.
You know, I do believe,
but like I do think the public's like, these are abuses of taxes. Like, that's not your job, and I don't see how that improves your position. So, you know, is there something wrong saying like, okay, enough's enough? You've ruined this for everyone. Too bad, so sad. But something needs to be done to protect the tax dollar.
I get you, Joel, but I also want to point out that board that went to Italy is not one of the boards that was taken over.
Well. Okay, I hear. No, you're right.
So, in fact, the boards that were taken over, and the reason was because of fiscal mismanagement. They were audited by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they found no issues.
So, okay, so I mean, we can make the argument of, surprise, this government may not be doing it in the most transparent or clear ways. But at the core of it, we're going to put a pin in that in mm-hmm. your argument. We're going to come back because that is definitely worthy of attention. But I want to kind of focus on the general idea of trustee reform, because if you ask the average taxpayer who's your school board trustee, they're going to say, I don't know, the MPP or whatever. Like, they might not even know how a school board mm-hmm. operates.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree with that. In fact, when I was a trustee and when I was chair, I was getting calls from the community who were asking me for very operational things, and I had to, tell them mm-hmm. that my role wasn't to dig into a classroom to, I had questions about bullying, like specific right. incidences, and the trustee role is more about policy than about digging into those operational kinds of issues. And Joel, I am absolutely for continuous improvement, and I think that there is definitely room for that. I think the role hasn't been looked at for a long time and could be improved, but that doesn't mean eliminate.
So what improvements would you want to see then? If you're given the pen to start marking up the Education Act, what would you want to see change in terms of empowerment or removal of powers, maybe of trustees? Like, how would you reform the system?
I think I would make it clearer to both the trustees and to the community, a little more education on the community side what the role actually is. And we don't have, or the trustees don't have any kind of taxing powers like they used to, but they should still have a governance role in how that money is directed within their system. I know when I was with the Halton District School Board, we were the lowest, the Catholic board in Halton and the public board in Halton are the two lowest funded boards in the province. And so there was a lot of, taking from this pocket and putting into other pockets. We were often, trying to find money here, there, and anywhere to put into the special education fund, the fund. So, and I have to say that is not specifically from this government. When I became chair of the board back in late 2017, I was talking to the Minister of Education in early 2018 about the problems with the funding formula, and that was a Liberal government. So it's something that's needed changing for a long time. I think that the position of trustee needs to, I always saw the position as a way, as I've already mentioned, a way to kind of test the policies that are coming from the minister and commenting back and putting a sense of reality. In the provincial system, in Ontario specifically, we don't have a Senate. Okay, so any kind of legislation that changes the education system, it just requires the readings and then it gets assent. And so that missing, sober second thought needs to really come from somewhere. And in the education system, that kind of should be on trustees. That's what I think.
That's an interesting perspective on something no one's actually been brought up in this whole debate. I think that's something I kind of want to touch upon, is that you're right. At the federal level, you have our two chambers, the House and the Senate. Now, I know people are shouting at the podcast right now, like the Senate should be done away with. Maybe, but it's there, and that's its purpose. Is, you're right, to be a sober second thought. I've never thought about that in terms of education. Now, so would you be? I mean, already it's at an arm's length, but for most people, I guess the system how it currently works is the government kind of takes care of your negotiations with your union representation, because there's collective bargaining.
It's a three-way table, but because the
province
is the purse holder,
the province is the one who signs the check of, they come to agreement with the union, and they'll sign the check to the boards, depending on how many teachers are in each respective board. Here's your check to pay for their salaries. Ultimately, they're the ones who are going to have to pay for maintenance or the building of new schools as populations change and grow. I kind of want to get a bit more into, like, where does that governance come into play? Like, where's the opportunity to kind of really shape education at a local level?
Okay, well, I'll give you an example, and this is also kind of included in information that I put out earlier. So in 2019, the government was going to legislate for e-learning courses for a high school graduation requirement, as well as increased class sizes in most levels across both the elementary and secondary panels schools. And looking at our local, as trustees, we asked staff, what are the implications locally? And so they brought us back information. How is this going to affect schools? And we saw that class sizes in some classes were going to get up close to 40 students. And because there's a whole balancing act that happens in classes. If you need to have a class for 12 students because it's a very specialized class, you have to balance that with a very high enrolled class to make that class average work, right? So it's not, oh, my class was, when I went to school, there were 30 kids in the class. Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about some classes that are closer to 40. And so we saw that and how it was going to affect our schools. And then looking at the e-learning side, this was, of course, pre-COVID. There was no evidence that this was actually going to be good for students, student achievement or well-being. And so what we decided to do was go out to our community, and we held focus groups across our region, one Burlington, one Oakville, and one that was a combination of Milton and Halton Hills, Georgetown. And then we did a survey, and we did that because the province actually said it was going to do a public consultation. They said it very quietly. In fact, I went to the local MPP in Burlington and I said, we're thinking of submitting something for the public consultation, and she didn't actually know that there was one going on. So I had to send her information about that public consultation. And so we did the survey, we did the focus groups, we gathered a report. Our survey had over 6,800 people respond, which is actually quite a good number. Sent in our report. As part of the consultation, also sent it to the opposition education critic at the time. She brought it up in the House. We suspect it wasn't confirmed because the government's never really said, but we suspect that our public consultation actually had more respondents than the provincial-wide consultation did. And it overwhelmingly said from our community that they did not want 4 mandatory e-learning courses, and they did not want class sizes to rise. And so there is no other touch point in the community that cares enough about education to do that on their own, other than trustees. So,
the question then is, when does, I'm formulating my thoughts here, but I mean, I got the point of why the importance of being able to push back or to bring up this information. I guess my thoughts are, why doesn't this happen more frequently? Too often I remember that situation when the government was talking about bringing in a mandatory online course to get your diploma, and there's a lot of question around it. There's a lot of pushback, and is this actually learning? Why are school boards then so scared of pushing back, saying we are on the ground, we're hearing from our teachers, we're hearing from our students, we're hearing from parents and families that they're not wanting this, or at least not in the current format that is being offered? Too often, not like school boards are kind of treated almost as a rubber stamp agency, and I'm just wondering why was Halton so adamant on pushing back, but yet we didn't hear anything from like Thunder Bay or Ottawa or any other school board really in the province?
I can't tell you why other boards do or don't do what our board did. We had I'm very proud of our board because we put student achievement and well-being at the forefront of everything we did. And so whenever new policy came from the ministry, we would put that to the test. Is this best for student achievement and well-being? It was the same when the autism list proposal came from the ministry to take all of the children that were on the autism list waiting for therapy, etc., many of which were never in the school system. They were just going to throw them into our school system across Ontario. And I mean, I could see right off the bat that taking children who had never been in the system, and perhaps it's because I know a number of children that uh, are high needs, like have autism and are very high needs, and to picture them just thrown into a classroom and the government was not going to give any resources and only 2 months notice, it was going to be chaos. And so that needed to be voiced.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's because, many of us were parents in the system.
So
I don't know.
fair enough. I guess let's say tomorrow you get appointed as Minister of Education, and you're able to build the ideal education system. Like, what would that look like for you? Are we talking just a few tweaks, or would you really overhaul how trustees operate? What is the role here in ensuring that our schools are the best in the world?
I would look around, because I know that it's being done better somewhere else. I don't know exactly where that is. It may be Finland. It may be someplace else.
Well, then,
But
there's
I
nothing.
don't, I mean, when I was a trustee, I was concentrating on the work that I had in front of me. And since I haven't been a trustee, I've been concentrating on other things.
I hear it saying, but I keep hearing about how the Scandinavian countries really do seem to have this education thing figured out. Like the
Mhm.
schooling system is drastically different than just you show up at 8, you leave at 4, and you sit in your desk rows and you learn 1 + 1 = 2. They really do seem to have figured out, and like I dare say, I don't consider Denmark, Norway, Sweden, or Finland to be horrible countries to live in. So why is there a reluctance? Is it just that we're locked into the system, like we're locked into this pattern,
There's,
and it's just we cannot imagine anything different than what we have
I think that
currently?
that might be a big part of it. We are really stuck. I mean, um, I come from a family of teachers, and of course, I still have a child in the system. I went through the system. I haven't seen uh, a lot of change. The change that I've seen happen is through more individual teachers pushing on the system
Mhm.
than the system itself really changing. And I think that it does need an overhaul. Personally, I would love to see the system change to be more engaging for students, see more crossover in subject matters so that they actually can see and apply what they're learning as opposed to it being so siloed. But that's a discussion for another day.
Well, there is. I mean, I find the current discussion about tech in classrooms to be intriguing because I do see the argument on one side of you need to, our tablets and our phones are powerful tools, and maybe kids don't have the right tools to use them properly. But at the same time, I'm also thinking, yeah, but they're going to be expected to use that in the real world once they get a job.
Absolutely.
So, I see well intentioned men and women, well educated men and women falling down rabbit holes because they can't discern fact from fiction on these devices. And I'm wondering, why don't we teach our children how to do that at an earlier age while they're in school, and they can be supervised, and we can teach them. Um, but again, that's probably a discussion for another time. I want to circle back to a point that you made earlier, and that is about the accountability of the current system that we're going through. The minister is pushing forward on this trend to eliminate the trustees of 4 boards. He's talking about possibly eliminating all trustees altogether
Mhm.
of every board.
Well, except for he's talking about keeping French and Catholic trustees
Well,
with a very diminished
I've heard that
responsibility.
might be, who knows.
Who knows?
I've seen some reports where he's kind of muddied that water a bit. So I'm not going to say that's an. But either way, like right now, I know we're moving into. He's eliminating the trustee rules, and he's appointing a supervisor that nobody seems to know who these supervisors are, which is a striking
what their job description is, or what,
Well,
what are these, how are people supposed to get a hold of these people, and where are they supposed to be working? I understand the one of the Toronto boards is actually working out of his lawyer out of his law office in like Markham or something. Well, how is anybody?
Well, that's it. But that's like what this. I can understand wanting reform of the system. That is reasonable and a discussion that should be held in the public. But this seems. I don't get this. I don't know what's the point of taking two of the largest boards in the province, hundreds, if not billions of dollars on the line between salaries, real estate, programming, and put it in behind closed doors. Now, is this just, I don't want to say this is par for the course for the Doug Ford government, but man, like this is shady as all get out. That we don't know where this is like the biggest file on the province budget behind healthcare and education. That's it. They compete for the top dog on the budget, and we're doing this behind closed doors in Markham, apparently, or wherever. We don't know.
Or wherever. I understand in London, the supervisor's not showing up to board meetings. There doesn't seem to be expectations. Like there's nothing laid out that, this position that seems to be making $360,000 a year, which is coming out of the education budget. Are they? So I want to just clear. A lot of people think trustees actually make money, like
right.
And it really depends on what board you're in, how much money is given as an honorarium. The base is $5,000 a year. And then there is a enrollment portion depending on how many students that your area oversees. So I can tell you in the Halton District School Board, where we had 11 trustees, the regular trustees, so not counting the vice chair and the chair, which had a $5,000 and a $10,000 top up, the regular trustees was about $15,000 a year. And we do not get any administrative staff. We got a laptop and a phone, and we could get a printer to take home. I don't even know if they do that anymore, because who prints stuff? And that would be it. Any letters we wrote within ourselves. Anything, we could ask, if we were going to the education conference, we could ask a staff member at the board office, like the director offered his administrative assistant to help book that. But otherwise, we were on our own.
Right. So like we're not talking about saving the public coffers, billions of dollars that can be reinvested.
These supervisors actually cost more than an entire board in many cases.
No. Okay. So let's play. If these supervisors are able to solve all the boards, Toronto School Board is the biggest board in the country. If one person's able to solve all their woes that they've been experiencing, good on them. And I guess you've proven us all wrong. My suspicion, though, is nothing's going to get solved, and some problems are going to be left untended to, or possibly made worse.
We've seen no evidence that having a supervisor in place is any better than a board of trustees. We've had boards being taken over before. The Peel District School Board was taken over a few years ago. We've seen no evidence that, there were better student outcomes in achievement and well-being by having that supervisor.
What would kind of be the worst case scenario? Like if this person comes in and just can't handle. I've been to a few board meetings, and I know you get into talking about directions of spending on, appropriation of land for new schools that are supposed to be built in 10 years, depending on the demographic demographic predictions, needing to approve extensions of high schools or elementary schools that might need a new floor or need new repair. I know there's a backlog of HVAC from COVID that still sits on the books for a lot of these school boards. These things cannot be like, these things are supposed to be done weighed on a board because they're supposed to be battling different needs, different priorities. If one person can't figure that out, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? Like, are we looking at 3 years of just stagnation?
I'm not sure even what, like, the problem with someone being appointed is that there's no pushback. So, and I don't mean just academically. I mean, if you're the Toronto District School Board, you actually have a lot of land. So,
Yes.
The Board of Trustees has to approve that land being, sold. So, if you don't have a Board of Trustees and you have a supervisor that's been appointed by the province, are they going to protect that land so that it's available for the future of the board? I'm not sure. Do they have ties to the community the same way that trustees do? Like, I mean, in Halton, we closed 2 high schools in Burlington. One of them was actually a high school I attended myself. And so there was a lot of community interest and consultation happening when that was happening, or whenever there were school boundary issues, school naming, all of these things that a supervisor by the stroke of a pen can just take care of. Do we want to eliminate the voice of the community? Because that's what you do with a supervisor.
Yeah, and once it's gone, we can't get it back. I've seen the fights over school closures, and they're not pretty, because I mean, that's for if you live in a neighborhood. Because I mean, if you think about it, we build all of our neighborhoods around schools, right? Like every neighborhood that we live in, if chances are, folks, you're listening to this podcast, in your neighborhood there is a school that's in your neighborhood. It's a part of your neighborhood that the kids go to, or maybe it's starting to dwindle down because population demographics and whatever have you. But once a school closes, it's gone for good, and it does. I think it does leave a lasting impact on the on how that neighborhood develops over time. You just there are a lot of peripheral things that happen around a school that you lose. I think what I'm astounded by this whole story is there's as much as it's about accountability, it's the lack of accountability that we're seeing in this decision. I understand the need for accountability of where tax dollars are being spent, and that trustees.
Well, it's transparency.
Well, that's just it. And I question, like, why can't we just pass a reform bill that just limits, like, that bans trustee travel? I mean, as you said, essentially you're a volunteer position. Meant to oversee.
I mean, in our board, we were very tight with our expense accounts. I never ever came. I think I had a $5,000 expense account that I never ever came close to using. And so at the end of our year, any expense account funds that did not get used went into like a main fund that we ended up using for some professional development, because you need that kind of thing as well when you come from all sorts of different backgrounds.
Sure.
And I believe we put there are certain rules about what you can do with that money. We put it definitely back in the system. We weren't taking trips to Europe or anything like that.
That's just it. I don't understand why you can't just put a limit on, okay, you're given figure out what the budget would be. Because I understand you might drive around, like Halton. You and I live in Halton. Halton's a pretty big place.
When I had to go to Halton Hills, I definitely expensed my mileage. Because
that's understandable.
It's an hour drive.
It's an hour drive. And so, expense that gas bill, and maybe you expense a meal, because if you're going at dinner time, you need to eat somewhere. So if you expense,
I never expensed a meal when I was in Halton.
That's not an accusation.
I have to say that if I did meet a parent at a Tim Hortons, I did buy them a coffee. And if sometimes when I went to school council meetings, I would bring like cookies or something. And I did expense those things. Nobody's coming to my office because my office is my home.
But that's just it. Like this thing is not a break the bank
No.
system. Like I thought that would even tally up to maybe $500 a year on the food budget. But even still, I mean, it's like 1,000 or 2,000 just to reimburse the gas bill
Yeah.
to
And our
drive around.
expense account also had to take into account our internet, like our phone
Okay.
and things like that too. So I mean that part adds up. And there was an education conference in Toronto that it was expected we would go to, and we would go to it. So that cost money too.
Okay, but still, like
that was no,
dipping into
and our expenses were always posted right on the internet. You can probably go back, and they're probably still there.
so I don't understand why you can't just pass a law saying, okay, the ambiguity about what you can spend money on in terms of or reimburse trustees for. Just say no, you can't. Like a trip to Europe is out of the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for that. Legislate that.
Well, would that I don't know. That would be an easier solution than putting in supervisors that nobody knows who their names are.
And as I said, that board was not put under supervision.
That is true too. I get the feeling that people are angry about this whole situation because they're willing to look at the situation of reform and to we all want our education system to be the best in the world because we understand, in my mind, there are a lot of global forces. We have China, the United States to the south of us that are gigantic economies. We don't have the manpower to compete, but the one thing that we can do is make sure our kids are smarter and can be equipped to handle situations that we can't even imagine now. Like when I was in high school, I did not know I could not have imagined what social media would be like or the problems that it brings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So in that mindset, I'm thinking like my kids, and we need to equip them to think about these things and to be able to think their way out of these problems.
Yeah, and People for Education did a study a few years ago that said every dollar we spend on our public education system is worth $1.30 to the future economy. And so it's actually worth it in dollar amount too.
Right.
And certainly, if we don't take care of our K-12 system, and I mean, we certainly should also be taking care of our post-secondary system, because that is our future. We've always been, we've been known for a long time to be a very highly educated population in Canada in general, but even, I mean, U of T, U of W, like Waterloo, Western, like these are very well-known educational institutions, and people come up through our system, the K-12 system, to get into these great schools and do great things. And if we don't take care of the system, people talk about immigration, but that's what we're going to have to bring people in to do the things that we can do.
Well, that's just I don't understand. I guess I think the anger and the questioning that's happening is that these are massive changes to the education system, and there's a lot of things coming loose in the education system, and we're told it's all for the betterment of our children, but I don't think anybody knows what the end game is. Like
we have not seen a plan. We've got no evidence of any actual structured plan for what is to replace trustees. There was no mandate. We just had an election. It would have been the prime time to say, hey, we want to eliminate trustees. It's a ballot question. Why wasn't it there? It was announced just a few months later that was the case. So they have no mandate, no public consultations, no plan. And the minister said that, he wants to eliminate it before the next elections. Well, those nominations open up in May. Elections are 1 year from now.
Right.
And that time frame is very small for planning an entire education system.
This government unleashes new curriculum with 2 months for teachers to learn it and implement it and what have you. But I think that this is a story that is not going to go away. I mean, although I do think, I'll be honest, I don't think anything's going to change because this government has not done anything in the last 9 years. I do mean anything. They have no record, so I don't think this is going to be it. But I do like to talk about it because I do think it raised the idea of like how can we improve our education system to make it the best. I do think we should be trying to make it the best in the world. Mm-hmm. And those are lofty goals, but I don't think we should be settling for anything less. The best publicly funded education system in the entire world is what Ontario should be having. And if that's controversial, so be it. I will stand by it. I'm going to leave it at that because we're recording this at night, and yeah, we're tired. It's the end of the day. But Andrea, very glad to have you back on. This was a great conversation. Probably not going to be the last one we're going to have on this topic. So I'll leave the door open for you to come back anytime in the future with whatever happens next.
Okay, sounds great. Look forward to it. You take care.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Motherhood is complex. One minute you're soaking up the sweetest, most heart-melting moments with your kids, and the next you're hiding in the pantry with a fistful of chocolate, wondering if you're the only one making it all up as you go. Spoiler, we all are. I'm Scotty, a mom of 3, life coach and intuitive who finally said screw it. I'm done trying to do motherhood the quote right way, and I started trusting my mom tuition instead. Because the right way is whatever works for you. Momplex is where we cut through the noise, ditch the guilt, and figure out how to actually enjoy being a mom without losing ourselves in the process. I'm not here to tell you how to parent. I'm here to help you stop overthinking, stop comparing, and stop feeling like you're failing because you're actually doing so much better than you think. This is a real, unfiltered, explicit as hell mom talk that you will not get in the carpool line. So let's do this. Real convos, lots of laughs, and a whole lot of truth bombs. Welcome to Momplex. P.S. This podcast is explicit. So unless you want your kids casually dropping F-bombs at preschool, grab your earbuds, mama.
I'm Jeff Woods, and I'm shining a light on music and the rock stars who make it.
He just was one of those people, he stood out.
He was a magic guy. He really was a magic guy. We all have faults. He had the same amount of faults as we all had.
This was before Led Zeppelin. Robert was full on. I mean, he was Led Zeppelin without the band behind him. He had the hair, the jeans, the whole thing, you know. And he was amazing.
The Records and Rockstars podcast, heard around the world and yours to hear wherever you get podcasts. All the episodes from JeffWoodsRadio.com.